Our next speaker is a man whose accomplishments seem to reach no end. Officially nicknamed as a doctor who makes a difference, his expertise lies in global public health, and his contributions include mandating seat belts in Mangalore in 2015, pioneering End Malnutrition Initiative, building the surge capacity for 21 district hospitals in India, Brian Resilience Mission, and many other initiatives which have impacted over 3 million lives till date. He was selected as a consultant for the United Nations Social and Economic Commission for Asia and the Pacific, and also serves the Atlantic Council, Washington, D.C. as Senior Fellow. He currently works as the director of the Edward and Cynthia Institute of Public Health, an advanced technical cooperation setup with Yanapoya deemed to be university, and is also CEO of CHD Group. Everybody, please welcome on stage Dr. Edmond Fernandes.
A very good morning, one and all. And at the outset, let me first take this opportunity to congratulate Tedx Nitte DU for putting up a fantastic event. In the year 2017, I decided to leave the health system and make medicine work. Last night, interacting with a lot of organizers in the Tedx DU Nitte, I realized India as a nation is in safe hands. The kind of medical students who are championing the nation's health system is very promising and inspiring. But here is the catch. We are almost 8 billion people on Earth, of which 4.5 billion do not have access to basic, essential health services. That's almost half of the planet. This led me in the year 2017 to address two questions which patients and which societies taught me. The first was, what can you do for us? And the second was, what can you learn from us? I'm sure my colleagues here from the healthcare fraternity and also non-doctors who have been patients at some point would agree to this consensus that every patient teaches us two questions: what can you do for me, and what can you learn from me? Now this takes me back to my origins. I grew up in Mumbai at Don Bosco High School in Matunga, and this was a missionary school, a Christian missionary school. I did my 11th and 12th grade, or what do you call it in this side of the world, pre-university college, in a Hindu society. And then I went on to complete my MD in community medicine from an Islamic university. This was my idea of India. And a story like mine is not possible anywhere in the world other than our great nation. In 2008, I joined MBBS at Father Muller Medical College, which was affiliated to Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, and I wanted to change the world. You've got the inroads, and now it's a matter of time I'm going to change the world. In 2014, after my internship, you know what happened? Any guesses? The world changed me. In 2008, I wanted to change the world, and in 2014, the world changed me. That's when I stepped back. It's like, okay, what do I really want to do with my life? Being a doctor is fine. Society thinks you're smart, you're intelligent, we know who we are. But what do you want to do outside of medical school? What do you want to do outside of health systems? To my good fortune, parents were supportive. So I said, let me register and start CHD group. The full form is Center for Health and Development, but over the years it's been branded as CHD group. Right after registering CHD group, I got into MD in community medicine at Yenapoya University. And this is when my understanding of medicine started to evolve, started to change. Because community medicine is not just a branch of medicine that looks at one side of the fence, but it looks at curative health systems, it looks at preventive health systems, it looks at policy, and it looks at research. Now, the real challenge started off. The 3 years of being in MD community medicine, my perspectives of the world started to change, started to evolve. At the end of MD community medicine, you know, CHD group was aging. So it started off in 2014, right after I finished internship, and then it grew over the years. So now was that inflection point for me. What do I really want to do after my MD? So I did get a lot of job offers from the United Nations, other international organizations. But then I started interacting with my mentors in the UN. Something hit me very hard. They told me, Edmond, you're coming here to work for the United Nations. You're not coming here to change the United Nations. It's like, that's the point. So then I went back and I said, I thought to myself, how about building power from below? CHD group is already a legal entity, it's existing, we've done events, programs, initiatives. What if I can create employment? What if this can be that very moment where the changing the world component starts in? And then my other side of mentors, they told me, if you want to build power from below, who do you think is your godfather? Do you have the Tatas and Birlas and Ambanis who are going to fund you? Then I told them, look here, I don't have godfathers, but I think God is slightly better than godfathers. And that's where we started off. The initial months did not get us any result. Went from pillar to post, selling the idea of healing the world. But it was an idea that only I think I believed in. I really doubt even my parents believed, because here is a guy who's finished MD and instead of making money, he's unemployed, there's no funds coming in, and he has a grand vision. But that vision is what kept us going, kept me going. And 8 to 9 months down the line, I finally found a donor who said, you've been hanging around for too long. Why not we give you some money and see what you do, how far you go with it? That was the first time somebody gave us 2 million rupees. Not a big amount, but probably when you're a student or you've just come out of med school, indeed a big amount. And they're like, go ahead, show us what you can do, and let us believe in that concept. And rest, as they say, is history. From that day on, we started to impact society like never before. And this process or this journey has taught me one thing, that as doctors or healthcare providers, we would still remain wounded healers. Med school teaches us to inspect, to palpate, to percuss, to auscultate. It does not teach you social determinants of health. It does not teach you commercial determinants of health. It does not teach you legal determinants of health. Ask yourself, what does healthcare really mean to somebody who lives 100 kilometers from here in a rural village? What does being a doctor really mean when you have people dying of war and genocide on a daily basis? What does healthcare really mean when somebody meets with a road accident? What we have done as healthcare providers is when there's a single accident or a single tragedy, we call it a tragedy. But when you have thousands and millions dying, we reduce human life to a number, to statistics. That's what we've made of our intellect. That's what we have made of our opportunities. And this is that very moment of introspection for all of us, irrespective of whether you're a doctor, you're a nurse, you're in other streams of service. Ask yourself this very question: what is it that you want to do out of your own life? And how can you be more resourceful to those who come after you? Can you really make this world a bit better than what you inherited as children of this universe? Our experiences of CHD group took us right from the hills of Wayanad to the corners of the India-Myanmar borders. It took us to the lengths of Jammu to the ends of Vellore. But in all of this, one thing what is clear is that no amount of assistance and intervention is sufficient, and every day matters for a ticking planet. There are few things in this process of CHD group that have really touched me, and one such instance I will share. This is the story of Suresh, his wife, and 2 children. So Suresh was a manual laborer working as a mechanic, a daily wager, and he lost his job in COVID-19. Some months down the line, heavy and severe flooding in his town led to inundation of water. Climate change became the perfect breeding ground for vectors and mosquitoes. To their misfortune, both of them got dengue fever. Unfortunately, Suresh suffered from dengue hemorrhagic fever and a platelet in free fall. He got admitted to the hospital. His wife thankfully recovered, but then she was running from pillar to post, checking with blood banks for platelets. In this process, the children getting 2 meals or 3 meals a day were reduced to a 1 meal a day or to a non-nutritious breakfast or food. Suresh, with God's grace, recovered, but the children from undernutrition slipped into malnutrition. So now the family was compounded with the problem of unemployment, malnutrition, weak health, and socio-economic challenges that surround them, with absolutely no social protection. What does this tell you as doctors? How do you practice medicine with limited resources? Or how do you build a health system that works? That's where, from changing the world, I graduated to healing the world. What we need to look at is not how a patient comes to the hospital and what kind of care we provide, but what is beyond that kind of care that we cannot see, typically the iceberg phenomenon. This is where healthcare really matters. To those people who think medicine is all about stethoscope and pills, I beg to differ. It's not stethoscope and pills, but the human body is a very diverse and complex system that can only be solved if you look at the human body as a whole. What does this tell us as healthcare providers? Of course, it tells us about empathy, it tells us about healing, it tells us about care. But beyond of that, it brings us to the two questions which I, at the start of my talk, presented to you. What can you do about it, and what can you learn about it? The next instance which also struck me is when we were working in the northern belts of Karnataka, and we were trying to end the burden of malnutrition. So here was a mother with 6 kids, and there was this child who was kind of playful, not very active, and in the eyes of the mother, you have like 6 children, so all of them are okay. And when we tried to assess the malnutrition status, we realized that the child is having severe acute malnutrition. And we told the mother, okay, this is that moment where the child needs support from healthcare systems and probably needs to get admitted into a nutritional rehabilitation center. And to my surprise, the mother did not agree. She said, no ways, I'm admitting the child anywhere. You can do whatever you want. And that struck me. On one hand, you have healthcare providers at your doorstep trying to diagnose something, and then on the other hand, you have the mother so reluctant to take the child to a health system. And then we actually had to threaten her, saying that if tomorrow the child dies, you would probably be going to jail on the grounds of culpable homicide, because you're just seeing the child die over there. It made no difference. And then the component of behavior change, communication struck us live. All the kind of top kind research that we publish in scientific journals would really mean nothing to the last person on the ground. All world-level policies that are discussed at tables of governance would mean nothing for people at the last mile. And if we really want to be that change, if we really want to be contributing something from our side that can change the world, we need to look at systems, approaches, and innovations that can work for people on the ground. I hope today, with this small insight, years later, we can come back to this occasion and look at it and say, this was that moment that touched us. This was that moment that really made us feel we should be doing something other than what we are doing. In the end, the true meaning of life is to plant trees under whose shade you will never sit. Thank you very much, and have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you, sir, for those inspiring words. Please accept this token of gratitude on our behalf. Thank you, sir.